Hello there, welcome to the channel. This is Nerd World Empire, and today's episode we're exploring an aspect of the Trek universe. A planet-ish kind of thing encountered by the USS Voyager in 2375. The planet known by its locals simply as the Waters. This unusual world was an entire ocean planet, not just like Europa, the moon around Earth's solar system. It's an actual ocean, not just an iced over ball, but no, this thing from its core to its surface is one huge ball of ocean, something that seems to defy the laws of physics. So let's explore the Waters. Before we get started though, like, share, subscribe, comment down below. And now let's get talking about the Monean home waters. As I said, the planet was encountered by the Federation starship USS Voyager in 2375. The planet caught the starship's attention due to the fact that it was basically just a big ball of liquid water in space. Drawn to the world, the crew of the Voyager were then to encounter the local inhabitants of the world, a race of humanoids called the Moneans. Although first contact didn't go swimmingly, the Moneans deployed 3 combat craft from the surface, or rather from the subsurface, into space. Crafts that were described as neither submarine nor starship, but a chimera of both. Maybe they didn't use those exact words, but that's basically what they were. The Monean ships were small, not particularly very powerful vessels. It's implied that they are warp capable, although these specific ships were not demonstrated to have that ability. They were armed with particle weapons, but were also seen when underwater to be able to fire a kind of torpedo. These ships were no match for the Voyager, and quite frankly were put in their place pretty quickly when they opened fire on the starship, for reasons best known to themselves, thinking apparently the world's been attempted to be annexed by various other hostile alien races for some reason. The Moneans themselves, as I said, were a humanoid species. They were not native to the planet, however, at one time being a nomadic people that came across the world and decided to settle it, building several large underwater cities on the planet. The planet itself was approximately 1,200 kilometers in diameter, with its core obviously being about 600 kilometers. Interestingly, the Moneans had never been able to penetrate further than 100 kilometers, as their ships were not particularly sophisticated enough to withstand the pressures of those depths. Despite the amount of time they'd been there, the Delta Flyer was more than capable of reaching the core of the planet. With a scientist called Riga on board, Tom Paris, Harry Kim, 7 of 9 took the Delta Flyer into the planetary core. Not only would they discover some pretty substantially monstrous creatures living down there, something akin to a electric eel from Earth but the size of a whale, and actually capable of being a threat to the small craft, but also they would discover that this structure, as they suspected, was not natural. There was an artificial construct at the center of it, creating a gravitational field which was holding the entire planet together. Who created it and why has been lost to time, or even when and why they left, again lost. The planet has been in perfect balance for countless centuries, until these Moneans decided to settle there. They began extracting oxygen from the ocean waters. This had the subsequent effect of causing the structure at the center of the planet to divert power from the gravitational field it was generating, which was keeping the planet stable, to its own structural integrity, as the water density at the core was increasing and putting more and more pressure on the structure. With this increased pressure came a need for increased survival of the structure, so it basically began to sacrifice the planet. Voyager's crew estimated that the planet had about 5 years of structural stability left before it would literally come apart and dissolve. They attempted to give the locals replicator technology as long as they would turn off their oxygen refineries, thus saving the planet. Unfortunately, the locals in their bureaucracy were unwilling to accept the change. They basically liked the status quo and thought that there was another way of doing this without turning off the oxygen extractors that they needed. Idiots, basically. As a result of this, trying to save them, Tom Paris would mutiny and attempt to basically violate the Prime Directive and force help upon these people that they didn't want, causing Voyager to take action, modifying a torpedo to basically be a depth charge, preventing his attack on the oxygen refinery and disabling the Delta Flyer. Recovered, he was reduced in rank and put in solitary confinement for 30 days as a punishment. It should also be noted, just as a sidebar to this, that eventually he would recover his rank of lieutenant, despite the fact he mutinied, despite the fact that he violated the Prime Directive, and despite the fact that, I'm sorry Harry, you just stayed an ensign forever. I know there's technically a vacancy now, but Tom has learned his lesson after mutinying and breaking the Prime Directive. You ain't getting lieutenant ever. Where was I? Oh yeah, that was just quoting Janeway's log, sorry. Now, this concept of an ocean world has been explored in theory before, but this was the first time the Federation had ever encountered it. Of course, it turned out to be artificial, not natural, but all the same, it was a fascinating world, and more important than that, as it was an artificial structure, a fascinating piece of technology to have ever been created. The fate of the planet is unknown. It's not known if the species, the Moneans, ever worked out that they were the ones causing the environmental collapse of the planet and actually scaled back their oxygen extraction, at least to buy themselves some time to fix it, or if they did eventually realize that they needed to leave and the planet dissolved and the race was saved. It's also entirely possible that they didn't learn their way at all and simply all died when the planet broke apart, and the only ones that survived are the ones back on their ships. But that's speculation, as to this date, Voyager and no other Starfleet vessel has returned to the world to ascertain its fate. All in all, a fascinating planet, a fascinating piece of technology. Don't know how practical it is, and I don't really know why anyone would do it other than maybe a thought exercise, but still interesting. What do you guys think of the Monean homeworld, so to speak? Not really their original homeworld, call it more of a colony of their people, but still a fascinating planet and interesting little side quest for Voyager once again. I'd just like to say a thank you to everyone for watching that video. I hope you enjoyed it. I really enjoy making these. If you did enjoy it, please consider giving a like, share and a subscribe, and maybe checking out the other videos on the screen right now, and in the description box below there are links to my other social media accounts.